Oh, there's certainly no shortage of stories coming out of Boston City Council these days.
Yeah, the 13-member body is addressing federal challenges related to everything from immigration to the rollout of new liquor licenses across the city. And our Matt Pritchard sits down with the City Council president to get her thoughts on all of these issues.
City Council President Ruthzee Louijeune, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here. Happy Sunday.
You've been at this for about a year and a half or so. How has it been being in this leadership role?
I get to further the work of the council, shepherd the body, and make sure that we are focused on the everyday issues that matter most to the residents of Boston.
You've made some changes, even a clock up on the diocese to make sure people are staying on time. Why was that an important step to take?
A lot of the discussion that some people would like to get into in our meeting on Wednesday happens or should be happening in hearings and in working sessions, and I just wanted to make sure that we get back as much as we can to how the council used to function.
Did it surprise you at all that some councilors were more upset about that than others? Did you sort of expect that?
Whenever you're instituting any sort of change, leadership is not always the most fun, because not everyone is always going to agree, but always willing and open to have discussions. But actually the time limits that we are abiding by are in our rules.
In your leadership role, controversy can come up, and one of the big topics that, of course, we've all been talking about is Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson and everything she's been dealing with, the federal charges and the guilty plea and all of that. In the beginning, you put out statements. You chose not to get on camera in the beginning. There was even a moment where reporters from some other stations were yelling at you during the middle of one of these council meetings. So can you sort of talk me through your strategy in the beginning days?
When the charges were first announced, I put out a statement before almost anyone on the council, stating that these are serious charges and that it would be in the best interest of the council that she resign. I called for that resignation even before something that I believe in is that everyone is afforded and should be afforded due process. And I understood that the allegations were serious enough to really jeopardize how the public viewed the body. And so I knew that it was in the best interest of the council at that point back in December to call for a resignation, and I've been resolute.
Does it feel bizarre to you that here we are sitting 6 months later and she still hasn't stepped down?
I understand that it may feel bizarre to some. It's what the law states, that the Boston City Council, even after I've called for her resignation as the president of the Boston City Council, the law states that the Boston City Council does not have the power to remove a sitting councilor. Now, outside of the law, I know that there's a court of public opinion, and that's why it was really important for me back in December when the charges were announced to call for a resignation, because I know that it would be difficult to explain to voters, and I want us to be focusing on the issues that matter most to the residents of the city of Boston.
Has it been a distraction from getting to all of the work that you were just mentioning?
I mean, I can't, of course, yes, there is one counselor who has pled guilty to federal charges, and there are 12 counselors who are continuing every day to uphold the work of the office.
So let's pivot away from that now, and let's move up to sort of federal uncertainty, which we hear the state talk about a lot, the city. Everyone is concerned with the actions that the Trump administration has been taking. Here on Boston City Council, you guys reaffirmed the Trust Act here in the city. How crucial, I guess, was it to take that step?
It's important for our residents to know that our values don't change based on who is in the White House. We as a city, we are a city that takes joy and pride in our identity as a city that is welcoming, that is inclusive.
Do you put any stock in the arguments coming out of the White House that needs to be done?
No. They're lasering in on harmful and hateful viewpoints on diversity, equity, and inclusion, on harm to our immigrant neighbors, instead of understanding the value that they bring to our economy.
Another area of federal uncertainty is funding and grants that might be coming to different municipalities. You're in the middle of budget season right now. How much of the budget do you feel like is being tailored to try and head off at the pass these cuts that may be coming?
Our budget is based on property taxes, and so we are pretty strong when it comes to our operating budget. Now, a lot of the funding for a lot of what we do here in the city does come from the federal government. For example, there's funding that we get for homelessness, to combat homelessness, the continuum of care grants, that now the Trump administration is trying to put all of these restrictions on what we can and can't do in order to receive these grants. So we are suing the Trump administration, and we're doing that because we realize there's no way that we can make up for the loss of these grants with city dollars.
You brought up property taxes there. That's been an issue we've heard a lot about over the last year or so, an attempt to shift property taxes over towards the commercial side of the coin to help people with their bills. That went up to Beacon Hill. They said that it wasn't necessary. How was that moment, I guess, and what have we seen for your constituents since?
The Boston City Council has twice passed the home rule petition in support of that shift so that there's more of the commercial balance. It takes on slightly more than the residential. We are trying to do everything we can to make sure that residents don't feel that increase. And so we hope that the State House will take action.
How troubling are these home rule petitions? Because I hear councilors say it all the time. It feels like basically anything you guys pass goes up there and it just sort of dies up on Beacon Hill. Is that how you see it?
It can be difficult, but it's not impossible. During my first year, I was able to get a home rule petition passed for the bowling building in Roxbury to get liquor licenses for the use of commercial spaces in the bowling building. So it's possible, and we have a great delegation.
Is it difficult, though? Because oftentimes leadership is really where you need to make inroads up on Beacon Hill. You can have all the contacts you want on the lower rungs, but if leadership isn't with you, it's hard to get things passed.
It is hard to get things passed, and that's why it's important that we work together, and we often do. I'm oftentimes on picking up the phone to make a phone call to gauge and to understand how my colleagues in the State House feel about a certain issue, because everything is a partnership.
Let's pivot over now to housing. How do we move the needle in 2025 to try and make the housing crisis in Boston at least more manageable for people?
It takes all hands on deck, and it takes us using every tool that we possibly have. My office right now, we're working on an ordinance that would ensure that public buildings that are owned by the city that are coming offline and public spaces have a priority usage for affordable housing, because we just don't have enough housing and we don't have enough affordable housing.
We're talking about these huge existential issues, but I think one of the things Boston City Council really focuses on is those constituent services in particular. And I think something people across Boston are concerned about is trash collection when it comes to rodents and rats. Where are we at with that, trying to move the needle?
We're treating the rats with birth control to try to control fertility as a way of getting rid of rats. In parts of Roxbury, another pilot program that we have is we have trash sweepers going out with more frequency to get rid of and to really attack some of the rat burrows that have really come to nest in Roxbury, especially in the post-COVID era. I've
been out in some of the neighborhoods where you guys have been trying to get a hold of the rat problem, and I asked somebody once, is it working? Do you feel like it's working? And they went, that was sort of their answer. I mean, how do you combat, I guess, that pessimism? Do you understand the pessimism from people with how big the problem is?
I understand the pessimism. Will we get to zero? Not sure. Should we be functioning from the perspective of how do we get rid of all of the rodents in our city and work backwards from there? I absolutely believe so.
Obviously, another thing that everybody worked hard on was getting liquor licenses to be put out across the city of Boston and targeted to spots where previously they hadn't been granted. Do you feel like this rollout is going well and it's actually going where it was intended to go?
I do think that the rollout is going well. I know that there are neighborhoods where we still want to make sure that we're getting more liquor licenses, like in Mattapan, but I'm happy for Blue Mountain Restaurant, one of the restaurants on Blue Hill Avenue, that was the recipient, one of the new liquor licenses.
I think I can hear in your voice, though, a desire for the rollout to maybe be working a little bit better. Is that what I'm hearing?
I want us to make sure, and I've been out in communities in Mattapan and in Hyde Park to make sure that business owners know and are able to apply.
We'll leave it there. Council President Ruthzee Louijeune, thanks for the time.
Thank you. A toast to our city.
I like that. Toast to the city.
Toast to the city. She's very forthcoming about a lot of the things that Matt asked about.
A lot of ground covered there for sure.